Hi guys, today we are going to find out, what if Muammar Gaddafi had stayed alive? You're standing in the rubble of Sirte, October 20th, 2011, watching history take a dramatically different turn. The smoke clears, revealing not Gaddafi's lifeless body, but an empty drainage pipe where he should have died. You hear the frustrated shouts of rebel fighters discovering their prize has vanished into Libya's underground labyrinth. Minutes earlier, you witnessed Gaddafi's loyal Tuareg bodyguards executing a desperate extraction through ancient smuggling tunnels. You probably won't survive the chaos that's about to engulf not just Libya but the entire region. The convoy wreckage above conceals a carefully planned deception. Body doubles and staged evidence mask the dictator's escape. You follow the underground route southward, where desert nomads have prepared safe houses for their former patron. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. You realize this moment will transform Libya from a failed state into something far more dangerous. Drop a comment below with your location and local time. Let's see where in the world you're watching from. Now, sit back and let's dive into today's alternate journey together. You watch Gaddafi disappear into the Sahara, carrying with him decades of hidden wealth and burning vengeance. You descend into the network of caves and bunkers. Gaddafi spent decades preparing for exactly this scenario. The labyrinthine hideouts stretch across southern Libya, carved from rock and stocked with enough supplies for years. You watch as loyal tribal leaders provide rotating safe houses, their allegiance purchased with gold bars and future promises. Above ground, you see Libya's interim government celebrating prematurely while their primary target adapts to underground existence. Gaddafi transforms from flamboyant dictator into a calculating shadow, studying his enemies' movements through encrypted communications. You observe him methodically contacting surviving loyalists, rebuilding his intelligence network one encrypted message at a time. The green resistance emerges as scattered cells receive funding and coordination from their supposedly dead leader. You witness arms caches being redistributed to sleeper agents who never accepted the revolution's legitimacy. Libya's new rulers struggle with increasing insurgent attacks, unable to understand their sophisticated coordination patterns. You follow Gaddafi as he relocates monthly between hideouts, always one step ahead of intelligence services. His survival becomes an open secret among tribal elders, though none dare reveal his locations. You see him growing a beard and adopting simple robes, erasing his iconic appearance for operational security. The man who once demanded global attention now thrives in complete anonymity, plotting his eventual return. You witness Gaddafi's gradual emergence after 18 months of careful preparation and intelligence gathering. Libya has fractured into three competing governments, each claiming legitimacy while controlling different territories. You observe him exploiting this chaos, quietly reaching out to disillusioned former government officials. The Tripoli-based government of National Accord struggles with basic services, while Tobruk's House of Representatives claims constitutional authority. You see Gaddafi's agents infiltrating both factions, spreading rumors about their opponent's foreign backing. His first public appearance comes through a carefully staged video message, broadcast simultaneously across tribal networks. You watch shocked reactions ripple through Libya as the supposedly dead dictator addresses his faithful people. The message promises restoration of stability and prosperity, contrasting sharply with the current governmental failures. You observe immediate panic in Tripoli and Tobruk as officials realize their greatest nightmare has materialized. Tribal militias begin openly declaring support for Gaddafi's return, sensing opportunity in the power vacuum. You see him establishing a third power center in southern Libya, beyond the reach of coastal governments. The Green Committees resurface in major cities, coordinating protests and sabotage operations with renewed confidence. You watch international intelligence agencies scrambling to confirm whether the video footage is authentic. Gaddafi's survival transforms Libya's civil war from a post-revolutionary cleanup into an active three-way struggle. You watch as Libya's oil production becomes the ultimate prize in this three-way power struggle. Gaddafi's forces seize control of southern oil fields, cutting off revenue streams to both rival governments. You observe international oil companies evacuating personnel as security deteriorates across all production zones. The National Oil Corporation splits into competing factions, each claiming authority over petroleum exports. You see Gaddafi leveraging his knowledge of hidden oil reserves to fund his growing military operations. Crude oil prices spike globally as Libya's production drops from 1.6 million to barely 200,000 barrels daily. You witness European refineries scrambling for alternative suppliers while energy costs surge across the continent. Gaddafi's petroleum strategy proves devastatingly effective. No government can survive without oil revenue in Libya. You observe him recruiting former oil industry professionals who remember the stability of his previous regime. The Ras Lanuf and Sider terminals become battlegrounds as all three factions fight for export control. You see international sanctions becoming meaningless when no legitimate government controls the oil infrastructure. Black market petroleum sales through Chad and Niger provide Gaddafi with untraceable funding streams. You watch foreign mercenaries arriving to protect remaining oil installations, paid by increasingly desperate companies. Libya's oil wars create a domino effect, destabilizing global energy markets and shifting geopolitical alliances. You observe the ripple effects spreading beyond Libya's borders as Gaddafi revives his pan-African revolutionary agenda. Chad's government faces renewed pressure as Gaddafi's allies among Tubu and Zaghawa tribes resume cross-border raids. You watch him reactivating dormant networks across the Sahel, promising weapons and funding to various rebel groups. Niger experiences sudden instability as Tuareg separatists receive sophisticated equipment from mysterious southern sources. You see Mali's fragile peace agreement crumbling as newly armed groups challenge the central government's authority. Gaddafi's survival emboldens other African strongmen who had quietly mourned the loss of their most generous patron. You witness Sudan's Omar al-Bashir publicly welcoming his old allies' return, offering strategic cooperation. The Central African Republic descends deeper into chaos as competing militias receive fresh supplies through Libyan channels. You observe France deploying additional troops to former colonies, struggling to contain multiple simultaneous conflicts. Burkina Faso's military leadership quietly establishes communication channels with Gaddafi's representatives in the south. You see refugee flows reversing as people flee newly destabilized regions toward previously war-torn areas. Egypt's government faces difficult choices as Gaddafi offers economic partnerships while threatening border security. You watch international peacekeeping missions becoming overwhelmed as conflicts multiply across North and Central Africa. The African Union fractures between members supporting stability and those quietly backing Gaddafi's continental vision. You witness Europe facing an unprecedented migration crisis as conflicts multiply across North Africa simultaneously. Italian Coast Guard vessels rescue thousands weekly as people flee not just Libya, but newly destabilized neighboring countries. You observe overcrowded refugee camps in Lampedusa and Sicily reaching breaking points under the massive influx. The European Union's migration quota system collapses as member states refuse to accept their allocated numbers. You see populist parties across Europe gaining support by blaming Gaddafi's survival for the escalating crisis. Malta declares a state of emergency, unable to process the continuous arrival of desperate migrants. You watch Greece closing its borders entirely after Albanian and North Macedonian routes become overwhelmed. The Schengen Agreement faces its greatest test as countries reimpose border controls to stem migration flows. You observe humanitarian organizations struggling with limited resources spread across multiple crisis zones. Spain's Canary Islands experience unprecedented arrivals as West African routes become the preferred alternative. You see European naval operations expanding beyond Libya to patrol waters off Chad, Niger, and Sudan. The Dublin regulation becomes meaningless when first-entry countries like Italy simply cannot cope. You witness social tensions rising in European cities as integration services become completely overwhelmed. Gaddafi's survival creates a perfect storm that transforms European immigration from manageable challenge to existential crisis. You observe NATO headquarters grappling with an impossible strategic dilemma as Gaddafi consolidates power in southern Libya. The 2011 intervention's legal justification becomes meaningless when the protected population now supports their former oppressor. You watch alliance members split between those favoring immediate action and others demanding diplomatic solutions. France pushes for renewed military engagement, citing threats to regional stability and European security interests. You see Germany and Italy blocking intervention proposals, fearing another prolonged Middle Eastern quagmire. The United States adopts a wait-and-see approach, reluctant to commit resources without clear European consensus. You observe Turkey exploiting NATO divisions by secretly negotiating energy deals with Gaddafi's representatives. Britain faces domestic pressure to avoid repeating what critics now call the Libyan intervention disaster. You witness intelligence agencies struggling to assess Gaddafi's actual military capabilities after years of reconstruction. The UN Security Council deadlocks as Russia and China veto any resolution authorizing force against Libya. You see NATO's credibility questioned when the alliance cannot agree on addressing its previous target's resurrection. Regional powers like Egypt and Algeria pressure European allies against destabilizing interventions near their borders. You observe military planners realizing that Gaddafi learned from 2011, making future air campaigns far more difficult. The Western alliance fractures between interventionist and isolationist camps, weakening collective security frameworks. You watch Vladimir Putin seize the opportunity to embrace Gaddafi as a strategic partner against Western influence. Russia publicly welcomes Libya's legitimate leader back to the international stage, ignoring NATO's previous intervention. You observe advanced Russian military equipment arriving in southern Libya through carefully orchestrated arms deals. The Wagner Group establishes training camps near Gaddafi's strongholds, providing tactical expertise and operational security. You see Putin positioning Russia as the protector of sovereignty against Western regime change operations. Moscow offers energy partnerships that bypass European sanctions, creating alternative revenue streams for Gaddafi's government. You witness Russian naval vessels conducting exercises in the Mediterranean, challenging NATO's maritime dominance. The Kremlin's propaganda machine portrays Gaddafi's survival as vindication of anti-Western resistance movements. You observe Syria's Assad publicly congratulating his old ally, strengthening the Moscow-Damascus-Tripoli axis. Russian diplomatic protection shields Gaddafi from international prosecution attempts at The Hague. You see China quietly following Russia's lead, offering infrastructure investments in exchange for mineral rights. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization considers Libya's eventual membership, creating an anti-NATO bloc in North Africa. You watch European leaders realizing their Mediterranean sphere of influence is being systematically dismantled. Putin's gambit transforms the Mediterranean from a Western lake into a contested geopolitical battleground. You witness Gaddafi's survival inspiring a wave of authoritarian resurgence across the Middle East and North Africa. Egypt's Abdel Fattah el-Sisi publicly praises Libya's return to stability, under strong leadership. You observe Algeria's aging leadership taking confidence from their neighbors' successful resistance to regime change. The Gulf monarchies quietly celebrate, viewing Gaddafi's comeback as validation of traditional autocratic governance. You see Tunisia's fragile democracy facing renewed pressure as nostalgic voices call for Gaddafi-style order. Morocco's King Mohammed VI strengthens authoritarian controls, citing regional security concerns requiring firm leadership. You watch Sudan's military leaders pointing to Libya as proof that popular uprisings ultimately fail. The Abraham Accords weaken as Arab states prioritize stability over democratic partnerships with Israel. You observe Iranian leaders claiming Gaddafi's survival demonstrates Western weakness and imperial decline. Syria's reconstruction accelerates as authoritarian allies gain confidence in their long-term survival prospects. You see protest movements across the region losing momentum as activists fear similar government crackdowns. The Muslim Brotherhood goes further underground, recognizing that the counter-revolutionary tide has definitively turned. You witness international democracy promotion programs being quietly defunded as Western governments reassess priorities. Gaddafi's resurrection becomes a symbol of authoritarian resilience, reversing a decade of democratic aspirations. You stand at a crossroads in 2025, contemplating how one man's survival fundamentally altered global geopolitics. Libya remains divided between Gaddafi's southern stronghold, the Tripoli government, and eastern tribal confederations. You observe a continent where democratic movements have been systematically rolled back by emboldened autocrats. The Mediterranean has become a Russian lake, with NATO struggling to maintain relevance in its former sphere. You see European unity fractured by migration pressures that make the 2015 crisis seem manageable by comparison. Oil prices fluctuate wildly as Libya's production remains hostage to ongoing three-way territorial disputes. You witness China establishing its first African naval base in Gaddafi-controlled territory, challenging Western influence. The Arab Spring's legacy lies in ruins, replaced by a counter-revolutionary winter spanning 2 continents. You observe humanitarian organizations overwhelmed by conflicts that multiply faster than international responses. Regional powers like Turkey and Iran exploit the chaos, expanding influence through proxy relationships. You see Western democracy promotion efforts abandoned as governments focus on damage control. The global balance of power has shifted eastward, with authoritarian models gaining legitimacy and support. You realize that preventing one dictator's death unleashed consequences that continue rippling through history. Libya's story becomes a cautionary tale about the unintended consequences of incomplete interventions. You step back from this alternate timeline, reflecting on how dramatically different our world might have been. The butterfly effect of one man's survival cascaded through decades, reshaping continents and redefining global power structures. You've witnessed how preventing a single death could unleash chaos far exceeding the original conflict's scope. Democracy's fragile progress across North Africa and the Middle East crumbled under authoritarian resurgence. You observed Europe's unity fracturing under migration pressures that transformed the continent's political landscape permanently. The Mediterranean became a contested battleground rather than a peaceful bridge between civilizations. You saw how Russia and China exploited Western hesitation to establish footholds in traditionally European spheres. Perhaps most soberly, you realize that sometimes removing threats completely proves more merciful than leaving them wounded. Gaddafi's survival demonstrated how incomplete interventions can generate consequences worse than the original problems they sought to solve. You've journeyed through a world where one man's escape from death reshaped an entire era's geopolitical trajectory. History's most profound lessons often emerge from exploring the roads not taken and the deaths that didn't happen. What other pivotal moments in recent history might have unfolded differently with just one small change?